Hey everyone, welcome to another NFL video. In this one, we're going over who I think is going to be the chalk for week 2 of the NFL season on Draftkings. You guys seemed to like this video last time as it was my most viewed video by a lot, so I thought I would do it again. And before we continue though, if you could leave a like, if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. You guys can also follow me on Twitter at crispinel16. And if you like access to some of the extra content I put out, I do write-ups for each position on Patreon. I load up my NFL spreadsheet that I use to help make videos and make lineups throughout the week. It's got everything you need on here: matchup, Vegas, projections, cash game rankings, values, rankings, projected ownership, wide receiver versus cornerback data, all that stuff in one spot. It's color-coded, nice and neat. So if you're interested, link in the description below for my Patreon, and let's get into this video. So I think a prime candidate for being the highest owned quarterback this week is Patrick Mahomes. I know he's very expensive at $7,500. But one thing is, a lot of casual fans play NFL DFS, and they see the NFL MVP, Patrick Mahomes. He's a household name now. He's really fun to watch. They're going to want to play him, and I don't blame him this week. He is facing Oakland, who is their 32nd DVOA pass defense last season. I know they looked pretty good last week versus Joe Flacco, but that's the key word, versus Joe Flacco. He does not stretch the ball downfield. Denver doesn't have a very good offense, and they're coming off, they had high emotions with the AB drama. They wanted to make a stand or make a point week 1 at home on Monday Night Football. So coming off a high emotion win, teams tend to fizzle out the next week. And I can see that definitely happening versus Patrick Mahomes. I know it's still in Oakland, but they had the 32nd DVOA pass defense last season. They should be missing Gary and Conley, which is an obvious downgrade. And I know the Chiefs are missing Tyreek Hill, but that did not seem to matter last week versus Jacksonville, which is a much better defense. They got AJ Boye, Jalen Ramsey in the secondary, and that's pretty tough. But I guess it didn't matter with Tyreek Hill. Sammy Watkins stepped up, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Patty Mahomes threw for nearly 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think he'll be just fine versus Oakland. I know there's no Tyreek Hill, but again, people will step up. Hardman should step up. He's very, very fast, kind of like Tyreek Hill. So I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be just fine here in this matchup versus Oakland, and I have no problem if you want to make him a key part of your lineups, even though he's very expensive. The next guy I think is going to be pretty high owned is Tom Brady at 6,400 facing Miami. And Miami just made Lamar Jackson look like a Hall of Fame quarterback last week. He only had 3 incompletions, 5 touchdowns. He scored over 40 Draftkings points. It was insane. And the Patriots have a 33-point implied total, which is by far the highest on the slate. Only problem is they are 18.5-point favorites, which means they could go run heavy in the second half. But I think if they do, it means Tom Brady probably threw 4 touchdowns in the first quarter and a half, and he already hit value there. I don't know if Antonio Brown's going to be playing. If he does, that's an obvious boost to Tom Brady. If not, he'll be fine. If you guys saw him last week versus Pittsburgh, he was just fine. Had about 30 points. So, like Tom Brady, he's a household name. People like him. Well, people don't like him either, but they're going to want to plug him in versus Miami. Horrible defense. Patriots should be able to roll here. So definitely like Tom Brady. And then we have Lamar Jackson at 6,700, and he just went absolutely bananas last week versus Miami, the team we were just talking about. But now he's playing Arizona, who does not have the best defense either. They gave up how much passing yards? They gave up 385 passing yards to Matthew Stafford. Now, I'll give him that it was also in overtime, so he had an extra 10 minutes. But still, nonetheless, don't have the best secondary without Patrick Peterson. Don't have a very good run defense either. Lamar Jackson looked great last week. I know it was versus Miami, but it's what we have to go off of, and he looked like a much improved passer. And this game should be played at a pretty high pace, actually, because the Ravens and the Cardinals play at pretty much the highest pace in the NFL. So it should be pretty back and forth. Well, I shouldn't say back and forth. I think the Baltimore Ravens will have a definite hold on the Arizona offense. They have an elite defense, and Cardinals have, Kyler Murray. He looked pretty good, but he's also a rookie, and it's tough to play the Baltimore defense. So I think Lamar Jackson will be fine, though. Hopefully he gets some more work on the ground, which I don't expect them to absolutely blow out the Cardinals. They should win by a good amount, but I think Lamar Jackson should be able to run the ball a little bit here. It should be at least a little bit more competent from game from the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe Kyler Murray does step up, and it's back and forth, and that's great for fantasy. But people are going to look at the game logs, see Lamar Jackson balled out last week, which he did, and they're going to want to plug him in their lineups, and he's also cheaper than Patrick Mahomes, so it makes sense to like Lamar Jackson. I like him too. I definitely want to pay for Patrick Mahomes, though, but I have no problem with Lamar Jackson. yeah, I think that's all I got to say about him. I also think Drew Brees and Jared Goff will carry ownership just because that game's going to be awesome for fantasy. But I do think the highest owned three will be Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and Lamar Jackson. All right, so let's get to the running backs now. And up top, I think Alvin Kamara is going to come in at the highest owned running back. Obviously, that could always be Saquon Barkley or Zeke just because of their names. But I think a lot of people are going to flock to Kamara in this matchup versus the Rams, who just let Christian McCaffrey go absolutely nuts. He caught 10 balls for 81 yards, had 19 carries, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, had an absolutely amazing fantasy day. And the thing about Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara is they have a similar skill set. They're both a little on the small side, but that does not mean they're not elite runners. They both catch a ton of passes. They are great running backs just overall, which I know you don't need me to say that, but it's just the truth. And Kamara should be able to excel in this matchup. He did very good versus them last season. I know one game he had 11 catches, and he had, 3 touchdowns. And the Rams did struggle with pass-catching running backs, and that proved true against Christian McCaffrey last week. So I love him this week versus the Rams. He's 1,000 cheaper than Barkley, and he has just as high of a ceiling as he does. And it's going to be an awesome game for fantasy purposes. It has the highest Vegas total on the entire slate, and the Saints come in as 3-point dogs, which is nice because usually the Saints are heavy favorites, and then they could lean on Latavius Murray more than we'd like. But I think Kamara is going to be heavily involved in this game, especially since it should be back and forth. So game script should be perfect for him because we know he's an elite pass catcher and should see plenty of targets the way this game should go. So definitely Kamara, and I do think he's going to be the highest owned of the top tier backs. And then let's go down a little bit, or actually I should say a lot of it, with Josh Jacobs at 4,700. Well, he had quite the opening start to his career. He had 2 touchdowns, I forget exactly, but he had 25 touches. He looked great. And he's honestly the lock of the week for cash games. Pricing came out before he impressed in his debate, and now we get him in an excellent value versus last year's league worst run D in terms of DVOA. They were 32nd DVOA versus the run last season. I will say, though, I'm a little worried about the potential game script here, as he only got 1 reception last week, and he looked good when he got the reception. So if they're smart, they should probably get him the ball more in the passing game, getting him involved. He looked very, very good. But still, at 4,700, we cannot pass up the volume and the talent that he offers us. And he's a true workhorse on three down back, and that's just hard to get at this price tag. So definitely love Josh Jacobs, and so does everyone else. So it's nothing special, but you're going to have to play him this week, in my opinion. The next guy is Austin Eckler at 6,100. He was another guy that had a great game week 1. He went absolutely nuts. He had 58 rushing yards, a touchdown. Then let me check his receiving stats. It was 96 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions. And he earned an insane elusive rating of 177. I mean, he had a great game. And, he made Melvin Gordon look very, very replaceable that week. And, I think he's a just fine play. I mean, he's a little bit more expensive than I'd like. But if he gets the same usage as he did last week, which he should, he's definitely going to hit value. He's very heavily involved in the passing game. And that's what we love on Draftkings because it's PPR scoring. So definitely Austin Eckler. He's cheaper than a lot of these guys. David Johnson, 7,100, but he's playing Baltimore. Dalvin Cook's playing Green Bay. He's got a good run D. Mixon's probably not going to play. James Conner versus Seattle. I mean, I guess that's fine. Todd Gurley versus the Saints. They're a tough run D. Wouldn't want to do that. So Austin Eckler, I don't mind. I know Detroit was pretty okay versus the run, but I mean, he's going to be heavily involved in the passing game as well, which boosts his floor and his ceiling. And Eckler is a really good running back, so do like Austin Eckler quite a bit, and I do think he's going to be high owned, especially if you look at if people are going to game log watch and they're going to see he's only 6,100, they're going to plug him in. But it's for a good reason. Then at the wide receiver position, I think by far the highest owned guy will be Tyrell Williams. If he is, 4,400? Scroll down a little bit more. And he's going to be an awesome play this week. It's almost too easy this week as pricing came out after he had that outstanding performance as the new number 1 for the Raiders. He hauled in 6 of his 7 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown. He's also he's not a bad receiver whatsoever, and I think he's very talented, and I think he's priced near or at $6K next week at this time, so I'm going to hop on before we hop off at his future price tag. With AB gone, this left Williams in a prime spot as Derek Carr's top target. And let me tell you, Derek Carr looked really good last week. He completed over 80% of his passes. Game script should be positive for Williams as they face off versus the Chiefs, who will definitely put up points. I think Williams is another lock of the week. I know it doesn't always feel great to have 2 Raiders, but Honestly, we might have 3 Raiders if we go further into this when we hit the tight end position, but they're just mispriced. So you got to take the value when it's presented, even if it's not the best team in the world. Although we don't know that yet. We don't know that yet, though, how they're going to perform over their season. And they look pretty good, so. And then the next guy I think is going to be high owned is Michael Thomas, and he's very expensive, but I think he's going to be worth it this week. If you've read my or watched my other content or videos, whatever, you know I love this game for fantasy, and I want as much exposure to it as possible. Thomas is the clear number 1 target in this offense, and should see a ton of volume with these Saints actually being 3-point dogs for a change. And so they really shouldn't be in a position to take their foots off the gas and just kind of pound it with Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. And Thomas has also crushed the Rams defense in his 3 career games versus them, as he has a stat line of 26 catches, 371 yards, and 3 touchdowns. One game he went absolutely insane. It was last season. I had him that week. It was great. He burned Marcus Peters for a long touchdown. He should see a good amount of Marcus Peters again, which is a great matchup that he can win, and he's done it before. So definitely like Michael Thomas. And then the next guy is Sammy Watkins at 7,200. He is coming off that huge game, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's not going to do that every single week, but with Hill gone, he's the number 1 receiver for the best quarterback in football in an elite tier offense. And by the way, he did that all versus Jacksonville last week, which is known for their secondary, Ramsey and Boye. Now he gets to face last year's 32nd DVOA pasty, possibly without Gary and Conley. Sounds like another good day is in order. We all know Sammy has talent. His problem has always just been staying on the field for long stretches, but we don't have to worry about that in DFS. He looked pretty darn good last week and healthy. Feel free to fire him up as your wide receiver 1 this week. And for the tight ends, it's really just between 2 guys this week. I mean, maybe if you want to play Mark Andrews again, but because TJ Hawkinson just did very good versus them, but I see no reason to not either play Travis Kelce or Darren Waller. So let's talk about Kelce first. He's 7,300, and yeah, it's a very good. First off, he's very good at football. Second, there's no Tyreek Hill, so you'd have to think he gets an even larger target share than he already had. He already had a big one. And third, Oakland was 32nd DVOA versus the tight end position last season. If you can afford him, I love pairing him up with Mahomes this week, as I fully believe they smashed. Kelce had a 12 reception, 168 yard, 2 touchdown game versus Oakland last season, and he almost got a third one that day too. It was either out of bounds or it got called back, I forget. But Kelce should smash. He's the best tight end in football. No Tyreek Hill makes a ton of sense. Then we have Darren Waller at 3,300 going up against Chiefs, same game. And I know I've talked about a lot of Raiders, but they're just mispriced, and he's just way too cheap. I don't even mind playing Kelce at tight end and Waller at flex. He's just an awesome play this week and one of the top values of the entire slate. KC struggles with tight ends, and Waller is an extremely athletically gifted guy who should be very productive in this offense. John Gruden loves using the tight ends, and Oakland should trail in this game, making it a pass-heavy approach, which should work out well for Waller and Williams. And really, anyone else I don't really want to play. I just want to either play Travis Kelce or Darren Waller. And then at defense, it's never fun talking about the defense, but we have to play them. I think Houston's going to carry some ownership. They are only 2,800 going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars with Gardner Minshew at quarterback for them. I know he didn't look too bad last week, but I'm willing to take a shot at him not beating my defense, especially for that price. And then the Patriots, they're 3,700. They're a lot more expensive, but they just held the Steelers to 3 points, and they have a much better offense than the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins is basically a JV squad at this point, and I think they'll carry some ownership for sure. And then we have Dallas versus the Redskins, which I know the Redskins didn't look too bad last week, but they're still not going to be a very good offense this season. And Geis is hurt. I know AP's not bad either, but I think they're a pretty safe bet at defense. They got some talent on there. And then the Ravens versus the Cardinals, not in love with it, but I mean, they should be just fine. Bears defense is always elite versus Denver. Raiders look really good versus Denver, so I could see using the Bears if you have the salary. But again, I don't love paying $4K for a defense, but there's enough value on the slate to do it. I think that's really all I want to talk about. So anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful for you. Remember to leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me out. If you'd like access to any of my extra content, links available and links in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video, which will probably be either a wide receiver breakdown video or top GPP stacks. I'll figure it out, though.